Hey, sweetness. And before you decide to leave, listen to me. Think about this. I put a lot of work into this video. It's damn near 20 minutes long. So please stay for the whole thing and make sure you can see maybe something you know, something you don't know. And I don't know, comment down below if I missed a thing or two. I mean, look, I had to go through all of this. Can you imagine putting this in order and trying to make it simple by myself? Like, wow, enjoy that. Okay, here we go. But before we move forward with the video, I do need to lay out a couple ground rules so this isn't too confusing. 1, this is going to be all X-Men, no Avengers. I have other videos about the Avengers and the timeline in my channel. Check it out. 2, this is going to be key events in the X-Men timeline, so it's simple. 3, this is a pre-release video of Deadpool and Wolverine, so I will miss a couple things, and this will be chronological, so it makes sense. Alright, with that being said, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It tells the algorithm that I'm doing a good job, and it shows me something nice. Alright, guys. Now we can get forward with the epic saga of Deadpool and Wolverine. We open up in the distant past, in the Nile Valley, in 3600 BCE. Apocalypse, the firstborn mutant, manifests his mutant abilities and ascends to dominate the power in ancient Egypt. He's put into an eternal slumber when his ritual is interrupted by heretics who go against him. This will play a vital role in the timeline. Moving forward to 1845, after seeing the death of the man he believed to be his father, a young teen named James Howlett manifests his mutant abilities. Bone claws emerge from his hands and gaining the ability of a healing factor. James accidentally kills his real father. This causes James, Logan, and his half-brother Victor Creed to run off together and go into hiding. In 1944, in the final years of World War II, Eric Lenshaw, a Jewish boy in prison at Auschwitz, manifests his mutant abilities to manipulate magnetic forces. Experimented on for his ability by Nazi scientists, Eric eventually escapes captivity and spends nearly 20 years traveling the world to hunt surviving Nazis for their part in the Holocaust. Meanwhile, in Westchester County, New York, a young boy named Charles Xavier, who has manifested telepathic abilities, invites Raven Darkholme, who has shapeshifting abilities, to stay with him in his home. She humbly accepts, and they become good mutant friends, learning about each other and other mutants around them. Moving forward to 1962, CIA officer Moira McTaggart is attempting to recruit Charles Xavier and gain his advice on a group known as the Hellfire Group, a band of mutants. We get our introduction to Azazel right here. Charles attempts to put together a team to stop them.
Excuse me, I'm Eric Lenshaw.
Charles Xavier.
Go fuck yourself.
Later, there is a battle during the Cuban Missile Crisis with the mutants that did team up. The Hellfire Club is stopped. This also leads Eric to murder Shaw, the leader of the Hellfire Group, and then goes by the name of Magneto. Charles in the process is injured from the waist down. He then opens up his own school for the gifted mutants. In 1963, Magneto is falsely accused of being responsible for the assassination of President John F. Kennedy and is jailed for his crimes. The outbreak of the Vietnam War sees Charles' school shut down, as his students are signed up for the military. Charles then becomes an alcoholic and abuses a drug that lets him walk. At the same time, James Howlett and Victor Creed are serving in Vietnam. They are then recruited by William Stryker, along several other mutants, to form a new Black Ops team called Team X, where James adopts the name Logan and meets Wade Wilson for the first time.
You know, I love this weapon more than any other thing in the whole wide world. You want to know why?
No. It's memorable. Sure, it's a little bulky, tough to get on a plane. You whip out a couple of swords at your ex-girlfriend's wedding, they will never, ever forget it.
In 1973, we move to the first branch of the timeline. Oliver Trask, the head of Trask Industries, develops a program known as the Sentinel Program. Raven, now operating under the alias Mystiques, assassinates Trask. This causes a branch into a new timeline. One timeline is the original timeline following the events of the original X-Men movies. The second timeline is the prequel era, or the reboot era, which we'll get to later in the video. With Trask's assassination being complete, Stryker takes over the Weapon X program. Currently, at this time, Victor Creed is hunting former members of Team X. Logan also finds himself in the Weapon X program at Stryker's offer. Logan then gets infused into his skeleton with the ultra-strong metal known as adamantium in order to give him the ability to stop Victor Creed. After betraying Victor, Stryker activates Weapon 11, a genetically enhanced version of Logan and Victor's former team ally Wade Wilson. Logan ends up killing Wade, then gets shot in the back of the head with an adamantium bullet, causing him to lose his memory. However, we do get an introduction to not only Gambit, but Deadpool, which will play a role later in Deadpool and Wolverine. Now, with Logan losing his memory, he's forced to go with the name that's presented to him being Logan and moves forward with his life, not knowing about the events that have occurred or his awareness of his brother Victor Creed. In the early 2000s, an older Magneto's latest generation of the Brotherhood of Mutants in New York City are hoping to use the absorption powers of a mutant known as Rogue, as well as technology to transform the population into mutants. This leads Professor X and Wolverine to reform the X-Men and stop Magneto's plan. In late 2003, William Stryker returns and attacks the X-Mansion. We also get an introduction to Lady Deathstrike, who's killed by Wolverine. Charles and all the other mutants are captured by Stryker, causing the X-Men to team up with Magneto and Mystique to rescue their friends, and stopping Stryker, who is attempting to use Cerebro to kill every mutant on Earth. Magneto then causes problems and tries to convince Jason, Stryker's son, to brainwash Charles to exterminate every human on Earth. This is stopped by the X-Men, resulting in the death of William Stryker and Jean Grey. Jean is resurrected by the cosmic entity known as the Phoenix. At the same time, Cyclops is killed. The X-Men and the Brotherhood are fighting over a cure for the X-Gene. They then decide to put aside their differences to stop Phoenix from destroying the entire world. Wolverine kills Phoenix and peace comes to mankind, with recognition for them having saved the world. Still haunted by killing Jean, Logan leaves the X-Men behind and travels to Japan. Logan encounters the Silver Samurai and defeats him and returns to the States. In the process, he meets Yukio, a psychic mutant who can see the future. She has a premonition that Logan will die at the hands of his daughter with the stake through his heart. We also see the classic suit right here, which can be a cameo scene in Deadpool and Wolverine. Logan is happy and excited and travels back to the States. After returning to the States, at the airport, Logan is approached by Magneto, who informs Logan Charles is alive and they need his help to stop an increasingly dangerous, dire future for mutant kind that's coming. A decade later, it's shown that Charles and Magneto's prediction comes true. Now, this is where I'm theorizing and speculating that the events of certain things take place, like Blade, Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer, The Punisher Warzone, and other non-main canon MCU projects. But let's get back to the story. Now, a handful of remaining mutants attempt to protect Kitty Pryde so that she can send Wolverine's consciousness back in time to his body in 1973 to try to convince Charles and Eric to stop the assassination of Trask at the hands of Mystique. This is where I'm speculating where the TVA can get involved and where Wolverine can be pulled in a way where it makes sense. Reawakening causing a new timeline in 1973, Logan succeeds and Raven is convinced to not kill Trask and joins Charles as a senior leader of the X-Men. Eric goes his separate ways after losing Mystique. After the public sees a mutant as a hero, President Nixon at the time is convinced to not put the Sentinel program into effect. Logan, after completing his task, attempts to return to his original time and then learns his future is changing and being erased. However, before this future is erased, Logan and Charles have a conversation where Charles informs Logan that his mission is completed and to return to 1973 to live out his time. Logan will forget this event. In 1992, Moira accidentally awakens Apocalypse from his slumber. Apocalypse goes forward to court what he calls the Four Horsemen. This includes a bitter Mystique, a young Angel, and a young Storm with Psylocke. Apocalypse then goes forward to attempt to create a new ancient empire. Charles, Raven, and a new generation of X-Men in training put a stop to Apocalypse's plan, convincing Storm and Magneto to change sides in the process. Apocalypse is then defeated by Jean, but not before Jean taps into a strange fiery power she had no idea was at her disposal. After the battle is won, the X-Men are seen as prime superheroes of the world and are accepted by the President and everybody else. Later, the senior team of the X-Men, which includes members such as Cyclops and Jean Grey, take a mission to space to stop and save a crew of astronauts. During this mission, Jean accidentally fuses with a cosmic entity known as the Phoenix Force, granting her dangerous amounts of psychic powers. At the same time, Jean is being tracked by a shape-shifting race of aliens whose planet was destroyed by the Phoenix Force. Jean also learns Charles suppressed her memories, causing Jean to lose control. With her emotions going on the fritz, she causes damage to not only the X-Men, but a dear friend of hers. This causes her to kill Raven. After Jean kills Raven by accident, this sparks up anger in Magneto and teams up with the X-Men to try to stop and save Jean. With all hope gone, Jean comes back to her senses in the last moment, showing her love for Scott Summers' Cyclops. This causes Jean to ultimately sacrifice herself to take out the leader of the alien race, transcending her physical form to become one with the Phoenix Force so that she may protect all who dare danger her. Now, with this moment right here, I just want us all to take note that the Phoenix Force is still alive. As we can see right here, Jean becomes one with the consciousness of the Phoenix Force and expands and becomes a beautiful bird in the sky in space, in that universe. So that's one avenue that Marvel can take to use the Phoenix Force. We move forward into the early 2000s of this new timeline, where it's a new future. Instead of mutants being embraced, they're being rejected, and there's a gene and virus going around killing them. With mutants declining, new heroes have to take up the mantle. This is where the events of Daredevil and Elektra can fall into place to make sense chronologically. Also, X-24 is being worked on, which we can see later in 2029 when Logan is attacked, but that's later on down the video. In 2014, the mutant race begins to steadily decline in numbers after a plan to lace food supplies with the X gene suppressing chemicals stop mutants from being born. At the same time, the government is genetically experimenting on children and torturing them so they may harness their mutant abilities for warfare. In 2016, we get our reintroduction to Wade Wilson, who's a former Special Force operative who now works as a mercenary. His world comes crashing down when evil scientist Ajax transforms him into Deadpool. The rogue experiment leaves Deadpool with accelerated healing. With help from Colossus and Negasonic Teenage Warhead, both mutants, Deadpool hunts down the man who nearly destroyed his life. 2 years later, after losing Vanessa, the love of his life, Deadpool, through certain events, must protect a young mutant named Russell Collins, Fire Fist, from Cable, a no-nonsense, dangerous cyborg from the future. Deadpool, assembling the X-Force, accomplishes their mission, not at the expense of some of their teammates, including the human member named Peter. Cable, with his time travel device, ends up using the last of his charge to save Deadpool's life, thus leaving his time travel device inactive and out of use. Later, in the mid-credits scene, we learn that Negasonic Teenage Warhead and her new girlfriend Yukio are repairing Cable's time travel device for Deadpool to use. With the repair of the time travel device being a success, Deadpool is handed it over. Deadpool then uses the device to save the lives of Vanessa and a member of the X-Force team that had previously passed away, Peter. Now, Deadpool doing this is very important and significant because this is where it lays the groundwork for us to see how Deadpool traveling through time can affect not only the multiverse and the TVA. And just note, Deadpool went back to 1979. That's extremely important because not only did he affect Wolverine, it did this.
Hey, it's me. Don't scratch. Just cleaning up the timelines. Look, eventually, you're gonna hang up the claws, and it's gonna make a lot of people very sad.
Huh?
But one day, your old pal Wade's gonna ask you to get back in the saddle again. And when he does, say yes.
Oh, right.
Love you.
Now, after saving Vanessa successfully, Deadpool returns home and settles down to enjoy his peaceful life. Now, in this timeline chronologically, we move forward to the years 2020 to 2028, and that is very important. In between those years, at some point, around 2024, 5 mutant teenagers are undergoing treatments at a secret institution that will cure them of their dangerous powers. They're invited there by Dr. Celia Reyes to share their stories. The stories they share and the memories they hold soon turn into terrifying realities as they start to question why they are being held and who's trying to destroy them. Collectively, the 5 teenagers are under the impression they are being trained to join the X-Men. This is not the case. It's discovered that Dr. Celia Reyes has been training these kids to be assassins. The mutants end up escaping by killing Dr. Celia Reyes. In the near future, in the year 2029, no mutants have been born in 25 years. At a remote outpost on the Mexican border, Logan is caring for an ailing 91-year-old Professor Charles Xavier. Logan's initial plan was to hide from the outside world. This is short-lived when he meets a young girl who also shares many similarities to him and not just looks. With Logan being weakened due to his healing factor, he does end up getting the upper hand and takes Laura and frees all the other young mutants. He ends up encountering a new experiment known as X-24. With X-24 being stronger, faster, and better than Wolverine with an improved healing factor, he holds a strong chance against him. X-24 is pushed back until he looks and sees the previous experiment that was X-23 take out the last of his companion. This causes him to not only gain an enragement, but use his abilities to the full extent of their power. Now, during Logan's fight with X-24, sometime in the middle, while X-23 is fighting X-24 and distracting him, Logan ended up learning that no new mutants were born due to the genetically engineered crops that are being supplied inside of the food that was given to the whole human population. With Logan having an arrow stuck in his leg, he can't help X-23 fight X-24. X-23 is using all of her new mutant abilities and power to fight back and hold down X-24. However, X-24 is too strong, and he takes Laura off of him, takes her out, and knocks her down for a brief moment, enough for him to focus his attention on Wolverine and take out Wolverine. However, this is not the case. The children that Wolverine and Laura rescued end up dropping a truck on X-24, thinking they're safe and good. With the last fading abilities of Logan's healing factor, he thinks he's safe. He's then attacked by a freed X-24. X-24 is enraged and drags Logan as far as he can away from the battlefield to finish him off for good. X-24 ends up impaling Logan on a tree and continues to attack and brutalize Logan and enjoying his victory. However, X-24 is then shot in the head with an adamantium bullet by Laura. Now, on Logan's near death, he tells Laura not to become the weapon she was made to be, and after she tearfully acknowledges him as her father, Logan dies peacefully in Laura's arms. Laura and the other children bury Logan, and before they depart, Laura also tilts the cross at his grave marker to create an X. And that about wraps it up. This is everything I could do to make it simple, to give you little Easter eggs that I think will be important in Deadpool and Wolverine. I appreciate you. Thank you.
I'm touching myself tonight.